Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today's Wednesday, February 25th, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Lots of lies last night from Donald Trump and attacks on black people, on Somalians. He crowed about ending DEI. And of course, we had that scene on the floor where Congressman Al Green held a sign up targeting Donald Trump when it comes to calling black folks apes. Republicans trying to snatch it out of his hand. Congressman Al Green joins us on the show. A lot of lies about criminal justice reform. We will have a fact check about what took place last night. Also on the show, the Idaho City Council has gotten rid of Juneteenth and reinstated Columbus Day. Also, folks, a white Hunter College professor is under fire for some racist comments she made about black students. And we continue our salute to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. We'll talk with Barbara Reynolds, who authored 2 books on Reverend Jackson. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's Uncle Roro, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, we can always count on my frat brother, Congressman Al Green, to speak truth to power. Last night when Donald Trump was walking into the House, Congressman Al Green held up this sign. You see it right here. You see Steve Scalise trying to snatch it out of his hand. He says, "Black people aren't apes." Several Republicans tried again to snatch it out of his hand. He was a little later escorted out of the House chamber. Congressman Al Green joins us right now. Congressman, glad to have you back on the show. Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to hold this sign up last night during the State of the Union?
Not only did I want to hold the sign up, I wanted it to be in the president's personal space. I was there to confront the president. I wanted him to know that what he's doing is harming black people and that we're not going to tolerate it. The president never said that this was wrong. He never said he regretted that it occurred. He, in fact, in essence, condoned it. And I don't, and those who allow this thing to continue, those who tolerate it, perpetuate it. I will not perpetuate the notion that black people are inferior and somehow related to the ape family.
You had several Republicans who actually tried to walk up to you and snatch it out of your hand. That was an exchange between you and this Oklahoma Congressman Mullen. What did you say to him when he tried a couple of times to snatch it out of your hand?
Well, the exchange was rather quickly done, and I told him that this was my property in essence, and that I was going to retain it. There were others who were saying to me that I should not be as concerned about this as I am. And I said to them, in essence, you know, you can't tell me how I should feel about the things that are harming me. And that's what plagues us as a people. Other people want to define our suffering for us and tell us the extent that we should call it suffering. We cannot allow this, and we especially cannot allow these other forms of media to determine when we can complain and how we should complain. Our complaints are ours to voice when we believe it's necessary to have them exposed. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point now where we can only say certain things on outlets such as yours. For example, the word racism. You say racism on the major networks, they won't have you back. But if we say it here, we can explain why it exists and what we must do to resist the existence of it and eliminate it so we don't have to suffer from it.
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. Wired magazine reported today that a White House staffer, go to my iPad, Henry, a White House staffer appears to run a massive pro-X account. A popular right-wing account that called a video depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes a masterpiece appears to be run by a White House staffer, according to records reviewed by Wired. I mean, that's a perfect example right there, Congressman Green, of here you are protesting this. And you're right, Donald Trump, what did he do? He actually, he claimed after he talked to Senator Tim Scott that he took it down. Later on Air Force One, he basically defended it and said he wasn't going to apologize. And so the White House wants to have it both ways. And so by confronting him, you're challenging him on this very issue.
Yes, we are challenging him on the issue, but we also are challenging him with the confrontation. You can challenge a person with a letter. You can challenge with a phone call. There are other ways to do it, but we've got to find ways to get in his face and challenge him. And this State of the Union is one means by which we can do this. The president knows that he can stand back and this never touches him. And this is what he does. He could care less about our complaining outside the White House. But last night was the opportunity to be there and in his face. And that is something that he does not find a means by which he can avoid. What happened last night was unavoidable. And I will tell you, I went there to do this. The last time it was done with the spontaneity. This time it was intentionality. The president has to know that we're willing to get in his face.
Did you voluntarily leave, or were you escorted out by the House Sergeant at Arms? Were you ordered to be removed? What happened there?
It was a combination of both. I was asked to take down my sign, to hold it down, and I said, no, I would not do that. And we talked a bit more, and after talking a bit more, and they became very, as you know, upset about my continuing to stay on, he agreed that he would escort me out, and I did leave. But it was a combination of both, because at some point, there was going to be more of what was happening. I wasn't trying to avoid that, but I did want to make sure I got my point across. And I stayed until I felt that I gotten my point across. And my intentionality was to leave anyway. I didn't plan to stay to listen through what he was saying. That was never in a part of my program. I wanted to get my point across and then leave. And I did that, and I left.
I got to ask you this here. There was this moment where Donald Trump said, if you agree with this statement, then stand up. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. The right wing is really playing this up by saying, well, the Republicans stood up and the Democrats, they refused to stand up. What do you say about that? And Glenn Beck is like, oh, my God, that was the easiest applause line. And, here you had the family of a young girl who was killed by an undocumented worker. And they were like, how dare you dishonor by not standing up? What do you make of that whole part of the speech?
Well, the first duty is to support the Constitution. And the Constitution has places in it where all people are to be protected. So I stand with the Constitution. He stands with a might makes right mentality. And if we allow this might makes right mentality, ends justify the means to persist, we will shred the Constitution. It will become meaningless. And we will then have more than authoritarianism. We will have the dictatorship that we all dread and would not want to see happen and occur in this country. I think even these people on the right, a good many of them would not want to see a dictatorship. But it's about the Constitution. What they try to do is reduce this to a person who's done something dastardly and say, do you support this dastard or do you support the American people? No, I support the Constitution. And if the Constitution accords a person rights, then you don't deny that person's rights simply because the person has done something egregious. You still have to afford people the rights that the Constitution says that they have, because at some point it can be my rights or your rights that the Constitution says that we have. And persons can then say, well, we don't support that because we think it's wrong. Well, you can't do that. I support the Constitution. And when the Constitution says that a person has rights, we have to give them those rights. I'll give you a great example. Due process of the law. He believes that if somehow you've been accused of a crime, you no longer have the right to due process. Well, that's what due process is all about for people who have been accused of crimes, for people who may have committed crimes, but they still are entitled to due process of the law, because that somewhere along the way, there will be somebody caught in that dragnet that is not guilty, that is innocent. And that law is there to protect that person and extricate that person from that dragnet. We have to have due process of the law. The president believes that he is the law, and no process is due other than what he would accord people of his own volition.
Congressman Al Green, we certainly appreciate you joining us on the show. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, dear brother. Thank you.
Folks, going to go to commercial break. We come back. Lots more to talk about from last night's speech. We'll also chat with our panel as well as we break down the state of our union and the massive amount of lies that we heard last night from Donald Trump at the State of the Union. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Hey everybody, I'm T.D. Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
Folks, a lot of lies last night, especially when it came to the issue of crime. Donald Trump claimed that he was responsible for rampant crime dropping the largest decline in recorded history. Well, guess what? Crime data shows that violent crime continued to decline in 2025, but it started in 2024. Actually, the trend began in 2022. Yeah. Here's some of the lies the twice-impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief said last night.
I'm asking this Congress to pass tough legislation to ensure that violent and dangerous repeat offenders are put behind bars, and importantly, that they stay there. Starting last summer, I deployed our National Guard and federal law enforcement to restore law and order to our most dangerous cities, including Memphis, Tennessee, big success, New Orleans, Louisiana, big success, and our nation's capital itself, Washington, D.C., where we have almost no crime anymore in Washington, D.C. How did that happen? In fact, crime in Washington is now at the lowest level ever recorded, and murders in D.C. this January were down close to 100% from a year ago.
My goodness, lies, 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 lies. Deanna Hoskins, the president and CEO of Just Leadership USA, a national organization focusing on criminal justice policy at the federal level, joins us right now. Glad to have you here. Deanna, again, that was a whole bunch of lies. I mean, for Donald Trump to stand there and say it was all him, how in the hell did it all, how the hell is all up to you when the data shows violent crime was high when he was there, and then in 2022, then 23, then 24, going down, 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 down. We've seen it in Baltimore, we've seen it in Chicago, and so it wasn't what the hell he did in the last year.
At all, Roland. Thank you for that. Thanks for having me on. But you're exactly right. It was the restoration of some of that funding to fund programs that were community-led by people with lived experience, violence reduction programs, prevention, intervention, economic mobility, and workforce. Those things were actually put in place once he left office, so we saw the crime. Those are contributors to crime. And again, he's trying to create the environment by pulling all of those resources and those fundings to actually create a rhetoric around the need for law and order. It's just a control mechanism.
Yeah, and see, the problem that I have with all of this here, if you listen to Mayor Brandon Scott in Baltimore, you listen to Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago, they talk about how they were able to do that, and it wasn't all about cops on the street. And that's the problem. You cannot deal with crime just by saying, oh, we're going to send in more cops and National Guard. That ain't it. That's not how you reduce crime.
It is not. And I think if you really listen to what he said, he kept tying public safety to locking more people up, deploying federal forces, and expanding law enforcement. We've already expanded incarceration through the 94 crime bill, which we actually started investing because it was causing more harms. Prisons and locking people up doesn't keep us safe. We have the data and the information to show that programming, investing in communities, supporting people to have economic mobility, workforce pipelines, healthcare, housing, actually are the things that actually move people away from a survival mode of crime. We're not saying people shouldn't be held accountable, but you're creating the environment that actually leads to those projects, those processes around criminality that you're actually trying to actually enforce.
And all you saw last night, that was all about I'm the tough guy, I'm the big bad tough guy, as opposed to what we call the soft aspects of reducing crime.
Exactly. And also, Roland, if you be honest and you look at it, if you're creating the conditions, if you're actually changing housing laws that's restricting people to housing, if you're actually keeping the SNAP, TANF food benefits for felony conviction to keep food insecurity, you're pulling educational opportunities, you're pulling workforce opportunities, you're actually trying to create the environment to increase the crime, to justify the law enforcement going in. But let's also be honest. Expanding incarceration is profitable for those individuals who invest in private prisons and profiteering from incarceration.
Absolutely. I want to bring in my panel right here to discuss this. Rebecca joins us. Rebecca Carruthers, President, CEO of Fair Election Center, joining us out of Washington, D.C. Joy Cheney of Joy Strategies, also from D.C. Brian Shapiro, talk show host, KSHP out of Las Vegas. Glad to have Brian as well. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Rebecca, the point here is, again, this is the games being played. And so Republicans and Donald Trump, what they want to do is, oh, I'm the big, bad, tough guy. And he wants to suck up all of the credit when the reality is he can't claim the credit. He's always trashing Baltimore and Chicago. So how are you going to trash Baltimore, Chicago, and other cities claiming credit for the hard work that they did to actually lower crime?
But Roland, something to point out is some of his statistics, not only is it not incorrect, but then when the statistics have improved and trended in the right direction, like you said, it's not because of him or his policies. We saw this a few weeks ago when people saw San Francisco during the Super Bowl. It wasn't the hellhole that he had described all last year about San Francisco and Los Angeles and other places in California. So I think, you know, much like we discussed on the show last night, much of his speech is going to fall flat because it is flat. It's simply not true. And at this point, I think he's going to start to exhaust the American people because we're kind of tired of the bombastic rhetoric.
Joy?
I mean, he already has exhausted the American people. Look at his ratings, right? Both for last night, but also his ratings in terms of the popularity of his administration. You know, this is at the beginning of an administration. He's only 1 year in. It usually gets worse, and he's awfully low, around 30%. So that is of popularity, and that everyone else he's very unpopular. People generally take what he says to be a lie and to have engaged in hyperbole. Now, what we have to be careful about is not becoming desensitized to that, not normalizing it. He lies so often. There were fact checks all last night, untrue, you know, half true, not exactly, out of context, over and over, lies, lies, lies. In other words, is what they were saying. But we don't want to make sure that we are not becoming desensitized to it. And that's what the congressman, I think, was saying that was so important. We can't just send a letter. We can't just put out a fact check because people know he's a liar. We have to take it to him and show how inadequate he is in person, in real time. But absolutely, he's going to do everything that he can to take credit for the wins the Democrats had already begun working on. And then to, you know, really to then take more credit than is actually due him, given the fact that the things that he's doing right now in a couple of years are going to have downsides for us. And we're going to see numbers slide in the wrong direction because any benefits we are seeing now are due to the work of other people. There has been very little that Donald Trump has done that has yielded positive benefits for the American people. Yep. You can just look at the polling to find that out.
Brian?
Yeah, hi, Roland. Thanks for having me. Good to see you. Donald Trump lied about everything. He lied about the economy. He lied about tariffs. He lied about inflation. And what's worse than anything else here is that he uses victims of crime as an opportunity to go after brown people. He did it time and time again yesterday as if somehow that's sort of an excuse. And speaking about crime, there were 1,300 crimes that were reported in D.C. just last month. So again, when he says crime is down 100% in D.C., obviously that's also a blatant lie. And when I hear from MAGA Republicans, they're so upset that Democrats didn't stand up and they didn't start clapping during certain moments in the speech. Well, first of all, they have a right not to stand up. And second of all, Green has a right to do what he did. And people have a right to be upset and angry. These phony Republicans getting in that room and standing up and clapping for literally every single word Donald Trump said. And the fact checking here, it's not an opinion. Literally, almost every other word out of his mouth is a lie. The entire speech yesterday was about attacking minorities, attacking migrants. And really, I think a poignant moment yesterday was when he bragged to the American people about taking people off of food assistance, 2.1 million people. And he bragged about that as if that's some sort of a good thing. And then every Republican stood up and started clapping. That is a perfect example, Roland, of the difference between Democrats and Republicans today. Republicans think it's a great thing when people are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, to take government assistance away from them. Democrats disagree, and I just thought it was a disgusting display yesterday from start to finish.
Also, did farmers come up at all? I don't quite think so. Deanna, what would you say to Democrats in this moment when it comes to the need for them to be advancing an agenda that, frankly, speaks to continuing the programs that cause crime to drop? That's what they should be talking about. Again, they should, Republicans always hit them on defund the police, but this is where they should be saying, no, the way that you, because truth be told, defund the police was actually about shifting resources away from just law enforcement, but they should be reminding, say, folks, this is how crime dropped. It wasn't all about sending in, again, National Guard and sending in more cops.
Right. Thank you, Roland. And you're exactly right. The narrative around defunding the police and talking about shifting those resources from that confinement, control, and punishment. And Democrats have to double down on the food insecurity. They have acts in the House already, the Restore Act, to remove the food ban around food insecurity that Brian talked about, the healthcare ban, the Medicaid that's actually being shifted, and people are getting ready to lose access to Medicaid. That's mental health. That's other healthcare services. The housing bills that are going through to limit people's ability of how long they could be on subsidized housing. That's going to move so many people back into homelessness, which actually is a part of the crime rate that we talk about when homeless people are homeless and hungry. Also, there's the unfair lending. There's the economic mobility. There are things that are on the floor for the Democrats to keep their foot on the pedal, to keep moving, that we can't move away from, because Brian said it. This is an attack on Black and brown people, and we cannot continue to build a social network for some of us. We have to build a nation for all of us around economic mobility and survival. And right now, we're just in a new rhetoric of control and power, and we're seeing it over and over again.
Absolutely. Deanna Hoskins, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. And folks with more information about your organization, where do they go?
They can go to justleadership.org, JLUSA.org, and learn more about our organization and what we do, and actually working with some of us in some of our communities around pushing some of these agenda and supporting those communities.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, after this break, Donald Trump lauds ending DEI, but isn't it interesting when Black Republican like Tim Scott goes on Fox News and how they trumpet the things they've done for Black people? I'm going to discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do the work that we do. The goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year, which is $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That goes to support this show, the 5 other shows we have here on the Black Star Network as well. If you want to do so via Cash App, use a striped QR code. You see it right here. That's for credit cards as well. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
All right, folks, in that shameful speech last night, you know Donald Trump just gloated when it came to the issue of DEI. Watch this.
Ended DEI in America. We cut a record number of job-killing regulations, and in 1 year, we have lifted 2.4 million Americans, a record, off of food stamps.
All right, so he's praising ending DEI. What does it say when you got nearly all white people standing up on the Republican side touting that? What I also find to be interesting is when these white women stand up, when they have been the greatest beneficiary of diversity, equity, inclusion programs and affirmative action. So that, to me, is also laughable. But see, isn't it interesting that they'll tout that, yet when they send out the help, like Senator Tim Scott, to go on Fox News, it's amazing how they tout all of these great and wonderful things they've done for black people.
We have a president who stands strong and tall for the black community in opportunity zones, the highest funding for HBCUs in the history of the country, the lowest unemployment rate ever, first time under 6%, fighting for rare blood diseases like sickle cell anemia.
Lies, 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 lies. Tim Scott lying. Y'all, when they announced the opportunity zones, which also are not new, my God, Jack Kemp, when he was Secretary of HUD, talked about these things as well. Here's what's crazy, okay? I had a Baltimore pastor on the show who was at the White House when they announced opportunity zones. 6 months later, I had the same pastor on. He complained about how low-income people were not benefiting. Black people were not benefiting. I then reached out to the White House. This is the first time that Trump was in the Oval Office. I reached out to the White House and said, do y'all actually have a report, if you will, that can show me the impact of these opportunity zones? I'm still waiting for that report. I have asked repeatedly, can somebody show me actual data that speaks to opportunity zones and the actual impact they've had. Nobody seems to be able to show any of that data. So when Tim Scott talks about that, and then Trump, again, it's amazing how they love talking about what they do for black people, but he'll bring up opportunity zones, but they can't supply any data to back it up. Then Tim Scott lies by saying the most funding for HBCUs in history. That's a lie. It's not a small lie. It's a big-ass lie. It's a flat-out, undeniable lie. $17 billion went to HBCUs under Biden-Harris. Trump can't get close to that. And y'all notice, whenever they tout this, they never actually give a number. And then he goes, the lowest black unemployment rate. That's another lie. The black unemployment rate went under Biden-Harris, hit 4.2%, lower than what Trump did. So it's lie after lie after lie. But this is what they do. So they love touting, oh, how we ended DEI. And see, all that is to make white people comfortable. Again, and we really talk about these folks in terms of what they hate. Okay, they've crafted this entire facade that, oh my God, white people are so hurt in America. They're losing so many opportunities. They're losing so many contracts. Do y'all realize that the federal government spends $700 billion a year on contracts? Do you know how much the DBE portion of that is? $37 billion. $37 billion. The total is $700 billion. So I guess what Trump is saying is it's unfair. We're not also getting the $37 billion. Let's go back to my panel here. Brian, I'm going to start with you. To sit here and watch these folks applaud. I recall when Mike McCarthy complained about how white and how the Republican side at the State of the Union lacked diversity. I remember when that happened.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I think when MAGA Republicans use the term DEI hire, in my personal opinion, that's code word for calling people the N-word.
Oh, ain't just you, Brian. Ain't just you. We believe the same thing.
Yeah, and let's be very clear. You want to know who the real DEI hires are? The buffoons that work for Donald Trump. Kristi Noem, what the hell are her qualifications for being in that position? I can go down the list. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is another example. I can go down the list of people in the Pat Patel, of people in the Trump administration that are not qualified to be in those positions that they're in, and it's showing with what they're doing or what the lack of what they are doing. But yet they always want to use the term DEI hire to go after someone who is brown, who is in some cases overqualified. And listen, I still hear people talk about Kamala Harris, people on the right calling her Joe Biden's DEI hire. Here's a woman who was duly elected as an attorney general, as a senator, and then she's chosen as the vice president, not just because of the color of her skin, but because of her qualifications and what she's done in her life. I mean, you have the wives of people who ran the WWE that are in those types of positions in the White House, and it shows with what they are doing right now and the damage they're doing to this country. I'm just so sick and tired of these people on the far right, or even the right in general, using these terms like DEI hire. These are the same people for years that said Barack Obama wasn't born in this country. Let's call it for what it is. These are bigots. It's not Make America Great Again. Roland, it's Make America White Again. That's every time I hear Make America Great Again and I hear idiots use that term, that's what I'm thinking in my mind. And it shows with their policies and what they're doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have folks like Tim Burchett and other Republicans, Joy, who will sit here and they say, oh, Vice President Kamala Harris, DEI hire. Oh, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, DEI hire. It is very interesting. You're absolutely right, Brian, that what they want to use is the N-word. And so they will use that against everyone, which is beyond laughable. They try it. Oh, and when these fools try it with me on social media. And again, I keep telling black people, I'm not explaining my credentials to anybody. They can all go kiss my ass. But Joy, this is the game they play, and then they want to say, oh no, we're not that way. We're accepting and loving of everybody. And then again, you got folk like Tim Scott. Now, mind you, his comments were in response to what Gavin Newsom said, which had nothing to do with black people. But this is the same Tim Scott who said that the ape video, that was the most racist thing I've seen come out of this White House. Well, guess what, Tim? That's your people. Joy?
Yeah, it's definitely there are people. And what I thought was interesting about that comment was the most, right? That presupposes there were other racist things coming out of this White House, which he knows, right? Unfortunately, Senator Scott is in the sunken place, and we all know what that means. And I don't know why he's chosen to do it this way. He is actually a good person if you know him to a person and individually. He hires a lot of black staff.
Who is?
Sometimes more than Democrats.
Who
but
is?
the facts of the matter, let me finish.
No, I'm asking. Hold up. Hold up, Joy. I'm asking. You say he's a good person. Who?
Tim Scott.
Here's my whole deal.
Actually good.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Here's the deal. You
disagree.
show us who you are by your actions. And so,
absolutely.
And so, when you are a Republican, when you are a black Republican, and you are an apologist for the bigotry that comes out of this White House, I'm not going to call you a good person.
That's your choice.
Exactly.
I know him, so I'm calling him a good person.
Well, guess what?
But what I am saying
he apologizes for a lot of racism coming out of this White House. He apologizes for a whole lot.
There is, and it is unforgivable what he has decided to co-sign on. There is absolutely no denying that as well. Two things can be true. What I would say is that we need him and others to use their voice more often, but we know that he doesn't actually have any power. This administration, J.D. Vance, Trump, all of them have decided that they want to put their lot in with extremists, bigots, maybe not so extreme, maybe a majority of their party who believe that Black people, Latinos, Asian Americans should not have any opportunities. But it doesn't stop with them. They don't want women to have any opportunities. These people are beyond misogynist, and they're not just limiting themselves to me and Rebecca. They're also talking about white women, right? They're specifically interested in limiting the rights of white women. And their attack on DEI is really about them. Their attack on reproductive health is also really about them. It ensnares us, but it's also about them and what's going on in their household. And this administration has chosen to throw itself in with the likes of them because there are people who believe that unless they get all of the opportunity, that it's not enough. And that's what my concern is, because it's happening to us individually. I have friends who are at law firms who are now having to face white men who feel like if they don't get all the opportunities on all of the cases, that it's because someone on the case is a person of color or is a woman. It could just be that they're not good at their job, but no one wants to say that. So the white partner then says, oh, well, this person wanted a woman, or, oh, well, this person wanted a person of color. And this administration is fueling those lies, fueling that anger. People who are incapable of competing, they are giving them an excuse.
So we also saw the racism on display last night, and we could see it where they continue to attack Black immigrants. This was the exchange between the racist Donald Trump and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Listen, Rebecca, people say, oh, my goodness, that's not how Democrats should respond. I'm sorry, where I come from, when you hear bullshit, you call it out.
Roland, something else I wanted to say, just continue on with the conversation with the other panelists. The first time I was called the N-word by a white person that I remember, I was about 4 years old. And quite frankly, it's not that I respect just being called the N-word, but don't hide it behind political correctness. Don't call it anti-DEI. Don't say it out loud and then blame it on Tourette syndrome, or the same network then not show Free Palestine, but then they show the N-word being sporadically said in a live broadcast, in a taped broadcast that was later aired, and it could have been edited out. Let's just be real here. This is America. This has always been America. So I would say for those who don't like Black folks, just say it out loud, because you have an administration that supports that worldview. But let's quit playing around with this thing. This is what this thing is, and it's beyond Democrat versus Republican. It's about white supremacy. So as we're battling for the soul of America, let's just have the battle. Let's just duke it out metaphorically. But let's figure this thing out, because that's ultimately what this fight is about. It's a foundational fight that's been happening since the inception of this country. So let's deal with it finally.
Well, I'm telling you right now, we got to call this thing a thing, and we're going to do it every single day, such as these folks in Idaho. So, you know, Juneteenth is a federal holiday. Well, in the city council in Post Falls, Idaho, they said, oh, no. We're going to say the hell with Juneteenth, and we're going to bring back Columbus Day, you know, the day that we celebrate a dude finding a country or founding a country that already existed. It was a 4-2 vote to do so, to restore Columbus Day to the calendar. Post Falls racist Mayor Randy Westland says Columbus Day is a better holiday to celebrate American heritage, while 2 councilmen on the board disagreed.
Next item up is an amendment to personnel policy holiday schedule. This is a change that I requested. Effectively, this is removing Juneteenth from the list of city holidays and restoring Columbus Day, which I believe is a more appropriate holiday honoring our American heritage.
I move to approve the amendment to the personnel policy and holiday schedule.
Second. A motion in multiple seconds. Further discussion?
I do have one comment on it.
Oh, sorry.
Juneteenth celebrates the actual end of slavery in the United States. And the abolition of slavery, I believe, is one of the crowning achievements of Western civilization and is certainly worthy of celebration. On the flip side, North America, as we know it, in the United States entirely would not exist if it were not for the expeditions of Christopher Columbus and other European explorers, which are also worth celebrating. So I don't know if you would consider doing an every other year type of thing, but I think both are very relevant to our history and worth celebrating.
I don't want to change the holiday schedule up. I think that's a lot of complexity. My own view is that Juneteenth is something that nobody had heard of until 5 years ago and was pushed for political purposes. And so I'm not in favor of having that in.
Cool.
I would agree with Councilor Malloy. I think just because we didn't know about it doesn't mean it's not relevant. I do think that I would completely echo Councilor Malloy's sentiments that the elimination of slavery, which was common worldwide up until the rise of Western civilization, and unfortunately is still very common today, is something that we should definitely celebrate and hang our hat on, and not something that just because we didn't know about or was more or was made less relevant doesn't make it relevant to today. So I would definitely advocate for some type of arrangement. I don't think these two need to be mutually exclusive.
You got to be pretty much a dumbass, Randy Westland, say, well, we didn't know about this till about 5 years ago when, it had been celebrated in a lot of places. But again, we're talking about Idaho, which is the home of a lot of white supremacists, a lot of militias. So I can understand why he wouldn't quite understand Juneteenth. But it goes to show you their sheer ignorance. That's what it all says. Rebecca, you first.
So Juneteenth, I mean, it's a little bit more complex than that. It wasn't the ending of slavery, because slavery still continued definitely through that season. And it was more like for the border. But fine, I'll let them have it at that level. What's interesting is listening for the last couple of weeks, a lot of this Eurocentric revisionist history of America. And even think about what Marco Rubio said last week in Munich. And he was talking about how the Great Plains was just so vast and empty and all the European settlers just showed up there to fill it up. I mean, this is more revisionist history, because even, stipulating that Juneteenth, let's say it did actually end slavery on that day. Slavery in North America was human trafficking. It wasn't just about the labor, but there was sex trafficking, there was human trafficking, there was all sorts of atrocities that were happening. So it's interesting listening to them talk about the end as they see it of slavery, aka human trafficking, and they're not acknowledging the human trafficking crisis that we're having with the ICE roundup. So it's very complex. It's very interesting. I would encourage them to delve deeper into the actual history of this country.
Now, you know damn well they ain't the brightest bulb in a dark room. Brian, go ahead.
Let's be very clear here. These are the same people who want to abolish Martin Luther King Day. These are the same people that want to ban books and don't want children to be taught what slavery was and how bad it was. They just want to erase history. These are also the same people who are totally fine with and celebrated Donald Trump getting rid of a Martin Luther King Jr. In the Oval Office, getting rid of a statue of Martin Luther King Jr., and they want to replace that with Charlie Kirk. That guy, Westland, that you just played, might as well have walked in there in a Klan outfit. That's what I think about some of these people. How did he even not know what Juneteenth was 5 years ago? How could you make a statement like that and be an elected official? I find it to be repulsive, embarrassing, and quite frankly, an embarrassment to white people that there are actually people out there that are elected officials that say things like that. I just think it's just gross. It's grotesque. And I've said this time and time again, Roland, I'm not saying everybody that voted for Donald Trump is racist, but I will say everybody that's racist has voted for Donald Trump. And I guarantee you that guy is a huge Donald Trump supporter.
Joy?
That is absolutely right. Not all racists, but every racist voted for him. Let me tell you what, this is also an indictment on the Idaho public school system. I mean, how could he have missed American history? And what bothers me is this retelling of world history, right? Well, slavery existed before. The transatlantic slave trade was unique in its perniciousness. And also, it's what is still having vestiges here in the United States. So it really doesn't matter what happened in other places around the world. This was the slave trade that we built our entire economy off of, which we are still building our entire economy off of. Let me just tell you, the new slaves, however, are poor white people, okay? That's what Donald Trump is setting up. I assure you, it's like Westland and even Malloy and all of them. Their constituents in Idaho are who the Trump administration has slotted for the low-paid, less educated labor that it would like to do the grunt work of America and build its riches off of their back. That is the issue of the transatlantic slave trade. These dumb white folks are also the victims of it as well. That's what he doesn't know. That's what I know. But of course, I went to Harvard Law School.
Well, I ain't go to Harvard Law School, and I still know these folk ain't the brightest bulb in a dark room. And I can guarantee y'all, when it comes to my travel around America, Post Falls, Idaho will never make the cut. Gotta go to break. We come back. We're gonna talk about this Hunter College professor in New York. Let's just say she was stupid for some comments made on a hot mic regarding black kids and education. We're gonna talk about that and lots more in the second half of Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
My name is Bill Duke, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Not everybody who's a professor can be called smart. This includes a social biology professor, Allison Friedman of Hunter College in New York. So there was a meeting on February 10th, the Community Education Council in New York's District 3. They were talking about education. She said this about 8th grade black students they were speaking about the potential shutdown of the school, and well, she decided to just pop off and say this.
Mr. Goldman and 2 other students on Fridays. He delivers lessons and helps us fit those skills into our lessons.
Bad schools that like they're
they're
too dumb to know they're in a bad school.
Independent in our class.
I mean, fuck. But apparently Martin Luther King said it. Like if you train a black person well enough, they'll know to use the back. You don't have to tell them anymore. They're just
Allison Friedman, what you're saying is absolutely hearable here. You've got to stop.
I'm sorry, sweetie. Go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
We have me and many other students with our classes and with basketball. Students might not be able to have these safe spaces and supports. We should be able to keep our school open. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Friedman later addressed the backlash, saying she was attempting to explain systemic racism by referencing a historical example discussed earlier in the meeting, stemming from remarks made by District 3 Interim Acting Superintendent Reginald Higgins. Now, Higgins had quoted the historian and the father of Black history, Carter G. Woodson. Here's the actual quote. Carter G. Woodson said, "When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary." Now, although Friedman has since apologized, many students, parents, and school officials condemned her remarks and are calling for her to be fired. The New York City Board of Education released a statement. Board of Education in New York City, the statement said, New York City Public Schools does not tolerate discrimination. We take these matters very seriously. And the superintendent, as well as our Office of Family and Community Empowerment, are providing support to the district in response to this incident. Citywide and community education councils are independent bodies, and their meetings are intended to be respectful spaces for students, family, and staff. And we are dedicated to supporting them and upholding that expectation. The school's chancellor, Kamar Samuels, also said this: "The comments made were abhorrent and have no place in our school communities. New York City Public Schools does not tolerate racism or discrimination of any kind, period. We take these matters very seriously, and the superintendent, as well as our Office of Family and Community Empowerment, are responding to this incident comprehensively." Okay. I'm just trying to understand, Rebecca, how she think folk were falling for the okie doke by, oh, no, I was really trying to explain girl, stop. Stop.
Joy and I both had and we're resting our heads on our chins. Here's the thing. So if she was really trying to explain systemic racism, why was she explaining it while someone else was talking? Like, make that make sense, right? Because watching the clip, it appeared that someone else was talking when she started saying all the racist stuff. And as an educator, isn't it, I'm going to use an educator word, the pedagogy, is that how you say that word? The pedagogy says that if you're going to teach something, you shouldn't do it while someone else is communicating, right? But that's just me. I only went to Nebraska law. I didn't go to Harvard law, so maybe Joy can illuminate us further.
I ain't go to no law. This is very basic. If you're explaining systemic racism, you actually set the conversation up to explain it. You just don't start just saying wild, crazy stuff, Joy.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. No one on that call seems to back her up, right? To say that this is the context in which she was saying it. She is lying and is trying to save her job. You don't have to go any school to see that. And let me tell you what else. She's not going to be teaching at any school. I predict it for very long.
I mean, Prager, you might take her.
I don't think she knew that her mic was on. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think she knew maybe her mic was on. But regardless of that, she should be fired immediately. Immediately. I don't think there's any excuse here. Just pure stupidity. And then what's even worse is it's almost like she's doubling down on that, thinking that we're all stupid and that, oh, well, she was quoting a historian back in the day. No, she wasn't. She's ignorant. It was racist terms that she was using and what she said. Everybody was disgusted by it. You could see people's faces and they're like, what are you doing? I can't believe she just said that. You saw the faces on these young people there. And the fact that she's trying to make excuses to save her own ass shouldn't work. And yes, I do believe that she should be fired immediately for this. There's no excuse for it.
Yeah, I'm like, boo, we're not buying your little nonsense. So can you please stop? But, you know, this is what happens when people's true feelings are revealed. And then they just mad that they didn't hit the mute button because clearly somebody else was talking. And then she thought she was talking to somebody else and she was on mute. No, you weren't. And now we know what.
Roland, I was just going to say, you know, the sad part about it is I bet you there are students and there might even be colleagues who have had bad experiences with her, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it, right? They couldn't quite convince anybody that maybe she was racist or maybe she was, you know, a problem in someplace else. They ought to not only investigate her current comments, but make sure there haven't been any accusations against her, because oftentimes that's what we find, that the person, you know, they get caught. But then when we look back, there were plenty of signs that what they said publicly was always the way they felt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's like, we're real clear. All right, folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
A Chicago police officer accused of violating the rights of Black drivers has been stripped of his badge. Officer Richard Rodriguez is now the 5th member of the North 18th District Tactical Team to lose his command amid an expanding misconduct investigation. The action comes after Chicago police launched a review that uncovered what officials described as a troubling pattern of undocumented and unprofessional traffic stops. Rodriguez was flagged in a database released by Inspector General Deborah Witzberg, created to identify hotspots of alleged police misconduct. He reportedly has more complaints than any other officer in the unit except Officer Joseph Vecchio, who is also assigned to the 18th District Tactical Team. Rodriguez is currently facing 28 complaints and is named in 8 pending lawsuits. Well, the Trump administration is weighing a new requirement that would force U.S. banks to verify the citizenship status of both current and future customers. According to sources who spoke to CNN, the potential move could come in the form of an executive order as part of the president's broader immigration crackdown. If implemented, banks could be required to request new documentation from customers, including passports or other records verifying U.S. citizenship. Well, a woman who claims to be attending service during a Minnesota church protest covered by former CNN anchor turned independent journalist Don Lemon last month is now suing him and other protesters. She claims she suffered from severe emotional distress as a result of the incident. Ann Doucette said she was attending a worship service at the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, January 18th, when she alleges Lemon and others unlawfully interfered with her ability to freely exercise her religion in a private place of worship. The demonstration was live streamed and held in the wake of Renee Good's death and was meant to confront the city's church pastor, David Easterwood, who is Minneapolis ICE official. Doucette is suing for an unspecified amount. Well, a new study published by professors from the Zucker School of Medicine at Hofstra Northwell says a major demographic shift is now underway in the United States. White births have fallen below 50% for the first time ever. The researcher calls it historic, saying minority women are now the majority. The study analyzed Centers for Disease Control and Prevention data on 33 million births in the United States, tracking trends by mother's race and ethnicity. It revealed white births at 49.6%, while all other groups taken together, including Hispanic, Black, and Asian, make up 50.4% of all births. Roland?
All right. I want to deal with that because, Ryan, I wrote when I did my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, I pointed to the white death rate in a number of states surpassing the white birth rate. And I remember when I saw that story, I think it was in Newsweek, a decade ago, I said, uh-oh, this thing is starting. And when we look at what's happening right now, there's no doubt in my mind the reaction that we're seeing from MAGA, what we're seeing from all of these folks, the attacks on DEI, is all because of this. And here's the biggest problem that I have. The biggest problem that I have, all these yahoos in mainstream media are completely ignoring it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to confront it. There have been individuals who are show hosts who I have been personally texting and emailing for years saying, y'all, this thing is happening. What are you talking about? And they want to talk about every other thing. It is as if even when we talk about identity politics, they want to act like whiteness is not an identity, is not part of identity politics. And it is. And I think one of the reasons why we are struggling to really understand what's going on is because mainstream media, and I'm talking ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, they do not want to have a real conversation. When you look at who's responding to what ICE is doing and how they're doing it, when we begin to talk about all these different attacks, the attacks on books, the banning of books, and we're not studying that, and also what's happening when it comes to elections, in terms of how they're trying to come up, oh no, now your driver's license is no longer good enough. Your real ID is no longer good enough. Now you got to have your passport or your original birth certificate. This is driven by this very issue. The Great Replacement Theory is driven by this here. And so Elon Musk, all he does is tweet about fertility rates. And what drives them crazy, and I've been saying, sorry, you can't blame black people, Latinos, and Asian Americans because white people stop having enough sex and stop having babies. Sorry, that's a white-on-white problem.
Yep. It's funny because when you talk about gun control, all they want to talk about is black on black crime. And you're absolutely right, Roland. When you go to the mainstream media, they don't want to talk about these issues. They would rather salivate over attacking Don Lemon for going into a church and simply taking out his phone and doing what any journalist would do and start recording and asking questions. They don't want to talk about these real issues. They want to talk about these culture wars. And you mentioned Elon Musk. You're absolutely right about that. A perfect example. And here's a guy who, for lack of a better term, spreads his seed all over the country, has all these women sign non-disclosures, and is not a father. So you're absolutely right, and it is extremely frustrating when you look at so many of these national networks all over this country not talking about the real issues that Americans are facing. I couldn't agree with you more.
This was a tweet that he sent out. Give me 1 second, I'm going to pull this up. he sent this tweet out, and this was this was last year, and Elon Musk tweeted this. The story was fertility decline hits all 50 states, new lows nationwide. It says the U.S. fertility rate dropped to an all-time low of 54.5 births per 1,000 women in 2023, less than half its 1957 peak of 122.9. Okay, Elon goes, low birth rates will end civilization. Okay, Rebecca, here's the problem here. We're not running out of people. It's the right people. See, what he's saying, what Elon is saying, and this is what MAGA has been focused on. You've seen these videos. Look at this. We're in Paris, and oh my God, it's ghetto. Well, actually, Paris is the ghetto of France. Oh my God, look at all of these Muslims. Look at these people that are coming from these African countries. When you have that rapist, Conor McGregor, who goes to the White House, and the indigenous people of Ireland, we're losing our culture. Hey, dude, it ain't my problem. Y'all stop screwing. And the numbers don't lie. This is extremely basic. Y'all, you cannot have a future economy if you don't have people. And if you're not producing people on your own, then you're gonna have to get the people from somewhere else. Control room, get that Mike DeWine clip from Face the Nation ready. Let me know when you have it. If you do not have people, you can't fill jobs. If you do not have people who can fill jobs, they can't buy houses or rent. And then if they're not there with jobs and buying rent, they can't buy groceries, which now means your tax base shrinks, which means that, guys, we had it a couple days ago, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, when he was on Face the Nation talking about Haitians and temporary protected status. We had it. Pull it up. You had it from Monday's show. We didn't use it. Pull it up. So this is the whole thing here. And I'm like, y'all, this is real basic. If you show me towns, Rebecca, that have shrunk, it's because the people have left. These are just basic facts. And so when Elon says low birth rates will end civilization, Elon is saying, no, white people. He doesn't want brown people, black people. Elon Musk is very clear. He wants more white people.
Roland, at first I wasn't sure if you were saying that Elon Musk was concerned that enough of the right people weren't being born or enough of the white people, but it sounds like I heard you say both, because for Elon Musk, I guess white is right. And quite frankly, look, he's doing his best to try to improve the white population. How many kids is he up to now? That said, what's so interesting about racism in the United States is that when we saw some of the dying Midwestern towns, or even some of the dying small Southern towns, where you see naturalized citizens moving into those towns and revitalizing and bringing the economy back and creating jobs, they're not just, to quote some of the Republicans, they're not just takers, they're actually creators in economy, because they're people. People, there's no one demographic that only takes and doesn't also create to add to the American economy. This country really could be great again if it would let go of racism, quite frankly, because when you see those areas of the country that actually needs influxes of people, it can come from some naturalized citizens that are in this country. But what's unfortunate, this white supremacist ideology just gets in the way of America and its ability to be great again.
This right here, y'all, this is from Face the Nation on Sunday. And this is Republican Ohio Governor Mike DeWine talking about Trump going after the temporary protected status of Haitians and how that is going to have a negative impact on his state. Listen.
Governor DeWine, in Ohio, your state has been the focus of the Trump-Vance campaign during 2024 and of their administration now, particularly the Haitians that you have, tens of thousands in the state of Ohio. You said this week ICE has not been clear on when they're going to surge to your state. Did you bring that up when you were at the White House?
I did not. I didn't have the opportunity to do that. Look, Margaret, my position has been very clear in regard to TPS for Haitians. I think
temporary protected status,
yes,
which the president is trying to revoke.
Yeah, I think the policy to revoke that is wrong. I think there's a consensus in this country, as we all have said. Let's get rid of the violent offenders, get them out of here. I think there's a consensus behind the need to do a good job on the border, and I think the president gets high marks for doing that on the border. But once you get beyond that, I don't think there's a consensus for taking people who are working, who are supporting their family. And we've kind of seen it in almost in a micro way with the Haitian community that's come into Springfield. Springfield is an industrial city, manufacturing city that was down. It has been coming back. And frankly, one of the reasons it's coming back is because of the Haitians who are working there. These are people who, if you talk to the employers, they were filling jobs that were not being able to be filled in any other way. So it's been a big boost to the economy. So if one day they know that TPS is taken away, no employer can hire them anymore. And so you got to have all these people who are unemployed. So I think the policy there is wrong. And if I could just say this, I think that this is a real opportunity for the president in regard to immigration, probably after the election, because nothing's going to get done before
the midterms of 2026.
That's right. I think the president has a chance to do something that no president has done for 4 decades. If you would take that opportunity, and I think after the election he'll have a chance.
Joy, here's my whole point. Here you have a Republican governor says they filled jobs that could not be filled. We've run clips of one CEO who said, oh my God, these folks are amazing. He's like, they work hard, they get the job done. He said, we could not be doing the business we're doing without them. Okay, so wow, it sounds to me like that's the kind of folk you want in the United States. Oh, the haters, when Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were lying about they were eating cats and dogs, well, we also know what happened. There was a white woman whose pet was missing, who made that crap up, and then later came out and admitted that she lied, she was wrong. Oh, by the way, her pet was returned. And so what they've done is they have completely insulted thousands of Haitians, and then you have these racist white folks in Ohio. We don't want them here. Okay, guess what? Your little rinky-dink ass town is gonna die then. So you know what? Those companies that have those companies there, they're gonna be gone. Your tax base is now gonna be shattered. Springfield was losing population over 3 decades, and with the Haitians coming in, it was bringing their places back. This is no different than the Republican governor of Nebraska calling Trump saying, hey, can you slow down on all of these raids? Because I've lost 6% of my state GDP because we don't have folk to work these farms. And this is what these right-wing maggots refuse to acknowledge. They can't, they're like, oh, deport everyone, get rid of everyone. Then it's like, oh, crap. Who's going to build houses? Who's going to work farms? Hey, slow down. Don't do that because now you're affecting my business. Well, y'all got to make up y'all damn mind. The reality is, if white people in America aren't having babies, you're not going to have a country 30 years from now. These are just some basic ass facts. And there's some black people. I've seen y'all, Roland sitting here, he's touting immigration. Y'all, this ain't hard. This ain't hard. Facts are facts.
It's math. It's math. The math ain't mathin'. And the fact of the matter is, if you go and talk to anyone who's in one of these towns that are dying, a mayor, a county executive in they are happy to see people from other countries. Look at what happened to Afghan refugees, right? There were cities and states begging, like, please come here, relocate here, rebuild here, bring all your skills here. anybody. There are people around the world who are saying, hey, if you are an American who wants to get away from America, come here. Everybody wants the best people. Only dying, dumb nations don't want the best people, and that's irrespective of race. Even Donald Trump and Elon Musk said, we're not hiring all you white folks for these jobs. So they want it both ways. But at the end of the day, they are trying to scare white people into saying that someone's taking something from them.
Yep.
But in reality, their inequity and their ineptitude has taken it from them. White women don't want to have babies with white men. That's the truth, right? That's what the statistics are showing, because some of them are so dysfunctional. They're on computer games and they don't know how to interact with real live girls, real live people.
Well, and again,
that's what's also happening here.
And
so what they need to do is focus on figuring out how we can make all of our people such that they are eligible, women and men, who people would want to have babies with.
But also,
and you don't do that by punishing other people. You do that by improving yourself.
But also, I need us. We got to be really honest about what their desire is. This was one of those idiotic conversations on CNN. This is featuring Ken Cuccinelli. Was he Attorney General of Virginia or something like that? I don't know. He was, and then he worked for the Trump administration. I want you to listen to what he says, and I want you to listen to the words he uses. And this sounds very much like that speech that the Missouri senator gave, which was a white nationalist speech. Listen to what he says, because what he's saying is, these are the type of people we want in America. We don't want them people. We want these people. Listen.
No. We're a Western nation. Our foundation is a Judeo-Christian Western civilization philosophy.
Built on slavery. Finish the sentence.
And indigenous land.
Those cultures fit in this country. And when I say fit, I mean values fit.
Which cultures?
Similarly Western cultures.
So Chinese Americans out, Japanese Americans out, Arab Americans out.
Here they are. Here they are. Most of this entire hemisphere isn't white.
No, they're here. It's not about white people. We have lost confidence. It seems the Republican Party.
This is something that won't be confronted.
The Republican Party seems to have lost faith in the revolutionary ideal of this country. That it doesn't matter the color of your skin or what country ever you color your hair.
No, that is not true.
Our ideals make American.
But a country like Somalia or Syria or Afghanistan, you cannot vet individuals coming from those countries. You cannot do it.
So hold on.
Can't be done.
You just
and so I land in the place of favoring
You're shifting it now, because you were saying before that it was about.
Brian, they refuse to just go ahead and say, look, we really want white people. So they use the phrases, oh no, our foundation is a Judeo-Christian Western civilization philosophy. Okay, Ken Cuccinelli, let's do the math. Germany, Germany, are they producing more white people? Nope. England.
What an absolute.
Nope. Hold on, no. England. Nope. Ireland. Nope. Italy. Nope. Like, if you start naming all of these Western, these Judeo-Christian, Western civilized countries, they're not producing more white people. Because when you look at fertility rates all across the world, white nations aren't having babies. So it's like, oh, so you think, I mean, Germany, the only reason the German economy has been consistently stable, they've been losing population. Why has the German economy been stable? Because of immigration. The Germans like, yo, we hate immigration. We don't want immigration, but damn, immigration is saving our asses with our economy. These are facts. But Ken Cuccinelli, just say it. We want white people. Donald Trump gave a speech in Philadelphia where he said, can we just get some people from Denmark, from Sweden? Donald Trump just said it. I need more white people.
So embarrassing to hear that guy on CNN.
It's Brian. Brian, go.
It's just so embarrassing to hear that guy on CNN spew that absolute nonsense. When I think of America, I think of diversity. When I think of America, I see the fact that it's a land of opportunity where we have all sorts of different people in the crayon box that can come to this country and make something of themselves. Heck, even Donald Trump said something not that long ago that a lot of MAGA didn't like, which was, we don't have enough talented people in America. We need to bring over 600,000 people from China. And I know a lot of MAGA Republicans didn't like that statement. But to hear that guy go on national television and make those statements, you're right. Why don't you just say it out loud? We just want white people here. We don't want people from other cultures here. And by the way, it doesn't help when the Republican Party is also the party that claims that they're anti-abortion and they're pro-life. Not to really get into that topic, but maybe if you weren't against maternity leave, and maybe if you weren't against basically every government program that can help that single mother raise that child, maybe more people would be having babies. Maybe they should think about that. But at the same time, again, it's the same thing over and over and over again. They just say it with different terminologies on CNN. Ken on CNN basically saying to the world, we don't want colored people in this country. We don't want people from different cultures here. This is founded from white people. We want white, which, by the way, anybody who could pass a third grade civics test would tell you that's not true history lesson. It's just not true. And it's embarrassing to me as a white person to hear somebody like that say those things. And most reasonable people that are not bigots would obviously disagree with that. And I'm glad he got burned on that CNN panel. And I'm not surprised that at one point he worked in the Trump administration either. Those are the kinds of people that Donald Trump wants working in his administration, the Stephen Miller types and people like that.
Well, listen, after the 2016 election, when all it was, we have to listen to these people. We have to go to middle America. I mean, you had, what's his name? The film, Michael Moore on MSNBC. I grew up in this place. We've got to listen to them. And I was like, no, we don't. Like, we already know what this is all about. This right here was a report from PRI in The Atlantic. And it said, beyond economics, fears of cultural displacement push the white working class to Trump. And right here, in their executive summary, this is what they said. They said, identification with the Republican Party, identifying as Republican, not surprisingly, was strongly predictive of Trump's support. White working class voters who identified as Republicans were 11 times more likely to support Trump than those who didn't identify as Republican. Number two, fears about cultural displacement. White working class voters who say they often feel like a stranger in their own land and who believe the U.S. needs protecting against foreign influence were 3.5 times more likely to favor Trump than those who did not share their concerns. Support for deporting immigrants living in the country illegally. White working class voters who favored deporting immigrants living in the country illegally were 3.3 times more likely to express a preference for Trump than those who did not. Economic fatalism. White working class voters who said that college education is a gamble were almost twice as likely to express a preference for Trump as those who said it was as important an investment in the future. Then it goes to economic hardship, and it goes to all these things. Y'all, we've been laying this thing out. Donald Trump, when he came down that escalator in 2015, he has been pressing the buttons of white fear. And the reality is, whether you are talking about and that's why you have a fight going on between the Silicon Valley class, the crypto bros who have been funding, who also start funding Trump. And then when Charlie Kirk and others were like, hey, what's going on? Because they wanted those special visas to bring folks in. And then these white natalists were like, oh, no. We have the people right here in our own country. And then even Trump says, as one of y'all just said, Trump like, no, we don't. We ain't got them. They not here. We kind of like need them. And so I need people to understand Okay, this is why mainstream media keeps screwing it up, because they don't want to have the real conversation. They don't want to call a thing a thing. They don't want to be honest about white America. They don't want to be, they don't want to put it out there on the table. So, well, we can sort of like dance around it and we can like, no. And I'm telling y'all, I've talked to these anchors, and it's like, and I said it in my book, White Fear. The problem with mainstream media is that these same white producers and these same white executives don't want to confront the reality, and so they want to come up with every other term, every other possible thing to describe it as opposed to what it is. The real thing is the Republican Party today is advancing an agenda of, oh my God, us white people are going to be out of power. And let's be real honest. There are black people who are saying, oh no, we're going to lose our power if these Latinos keep coming in here. We're losing our stuff, without realizing that 10% of the black population in America right now are black immigrants. And then if you also start breaking down a lot of the people who don't classify as black immigrants, they're actually one generation removed from being an immigrant. Oh, y'all want to see stupid? I'm going to show you stupid. That crazy ass, Ann Coulter. And again, this is how stupid these people are, y'all. Give me 1 second. Y'all about to trip out, okay? This is stupid. Ann Coulter actually posted this tweet, and boy, did she get nailed in the community notes. She got nailed big time. And again, I just want y'all to understand when we talk about these things, when I say one person removed, okay? So the person who sits here and wants to tell me about, you know, all your FBA people, well, guess what? Shirley Chisholm, hello, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, Eric Holder, like it's a whole, Westmore, it's a whole, I mean, my God. Go to New York City. What the hell do y'all think Jamaica Queens is? Why they call it that? It is unbelievable to me when I listen to these people who don't understand when you say that there's a lot of people here. So here's Ann Coulter. This dumbass tweets, that beautiful ending to Trump's SOTU address reminds me why we can't have a second, third, or fourth generation immigrant as president. Love for our country has to be in your genes. The reader context. President Trump is a second-generation immigrant through his Scottish-born mother and a third-generation immigrant through his German-born paternal grandparents.
What an idiot. What an idiot.
Who's married to an immigrant.
But
right. Who's married to an immigrant and who's
in the Epstein files.
And whose first wife was an immigrant. Whose son is the son of an immigrant, Barron. Rebecca, go ahead.
So it's interesting talking about Middle America, because listening to Cusinelli, that's a Italian surname, and being from Middle America, historically Italians and Irish weren't treated as white people when they got to this country. It's a little Black history. Like when you think about all the Italians that were forced to live in Mississippi and in Louisiana, it's one reason why in the Midwest, when you have the folks who moved up north during the Great Northern Migration from Mississippi into like some of the northern cities, it's the reason why if you go in the Midwest and you have a fish fry, there's usually the side that's served with that fish fry is spaghetti. The reason why is because when the Italian immigrants lived in Mississippi, spaghetti was cheap food. And so catfish is cheap food. And so Italians, because they weren't treated as white folks in this country, they were made to live in the segregated areas near Black folks. And so you can see some of the combinations in food and culture, which actually shows the migration patterns within the United States that was tied to what? racism and white racism. So it's really interesting that Ken, can I call him Ken? That he seems to forget the history of his own people in this country and how they weren't white. It wasn't until after World War II when we saw the increase in propaganda of showing this is what Americanism is. So we started to see the Leave It to Beaver and all those sitcoms in the 50s and 60s showing this is Americana. And it was very waspy. It was very whitewashed. And so I'm thinking, I don't even know if the correct term here is homophone. When we think of the word America, in American, what it means, Bad Bunny just showed us at the Super Bowl that Brazilians are Americans, that Puerto Ricans are Americans, that Dominicans are Americans. And so it's interesting hearing this revisionist history where they're trying to prove and show and paint this brush backwards of America has always been a white country, or in America is only the United States of America. Well, that simply is not the truth. And so we are seeing one party in this country that is furiously trying to undo and erase other non-WASPy cultures because they want white supremacy. They want the United States to be a white supremacist state. When we see the fall of apartheid in South Africa, they were afraid they were going to lose a white supremacy state. When we look at the UK, a white supremacy state, you can even make an argument about certain things in the Middle East of white supremacy states, but I won't go there tonight. So that said, the United States for these people with this particular worldview, this ideology, is the last place on earth they can go.
Yeah.
And that's what this fight is.
And so people just need to understand, I need our people to understand what is being played here. And when they begin to have these conversations, I'll make this last point. When I see somebody black go, well, they're going to be displacing us. I'm going to say this again. When you're voting at 38 and 40% of your capacity, you're actually self-sabotaging. You're self-sabotaging. When I see these stories, they're like, oh my goodness, the black population of New York City is decreasing. It's not what it was when David Dinkins was there. Yeah, because when you basically destroy what were middle-class jobs, people are going to leave and go places. What also people don't understand is that there's been a reverse migration happening in the last 20 years. But also understand what the reverse migration is also about. There are a lot of black people who are leaving places because they also want to go where they want to go home, where their family members are. I mean, the reality is there are people who are leaving New York City, who are leaving Chicago. Chicago used to be number 2 in America of the most number of African Americans. New York City was number 1, 3.5 million. Chicago was 2. Chicago got surpassed by Atlanta. So when you start talking about people leaving Chicago, there are a multitude of reasons why. And so there were economic reasons why black people were leaving the South to go north. They were also running away from the KKK. So when people have these conversations and they're like, well, this is what's happening, you might want to be deeper than mustard on a hot dog and actually understand trends and how people move and how they go different places and why they do this. Economics is a huge part of this as well. Weather is a huge part of this. Y'all, I lived in Chicago 6 years. Ain't no way in hell I would want to go live in Chicago again, except for 5 months out of the year. It's too damn cold. And I could add the entire Midwest. I ain't trying to freeze my ass off. Like people act like this stuff is not real. Also, last point you ever heard me make on this show, China. China instituted a one-child rule because they said we're about to be overpopulated. The Chinese were doing bad math. Well, they forgot in 30 years, the people who were 60 will be 90, will be passing away. China went, oh shit. Hey y'all, it's now a 2-child rule. Too late. Remember I told y'all this is an economic thing? Do all y'all remember the movie Rising Sun? Everything like China is going to... America was freaking out. Every American politician, China is going to surpass the United States. Oh my God, they're going to be the world's economic leader. No longer will the dollar be dominant, it's going to be the yen. The American economy is $30 trillion. The Chinese economy is $19 trillion. They are $11 trillion away from the United States. They ain't making that up soon. But even China realized China does not have lots of immigration. So the Chinese said, damn, our people got to start having more kids, because if they don't, we're going to be in a serious economic trouble in 30 years, because we're not going to be able to replace the people who are adults today who will become ancestors tomorrow. Maybe some of y'all need that history lesson. Got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk with pastor out of Detroit, New Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. very well, including a journalist, Barbara Reynolds, who authored 2 books on Reverend Jackson as well. Lots to talk about, y'all. Don't forget, support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Join our Breen and Funk fan club. If you want to support us via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Also, for checks and money, for credit cards, use that QR code as well. Checks and money, or to make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just 2 millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Folks, the funeral services of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. continue to be firmed up. He will lie in state beginning tomorrow at Rainbow Push headquarters in Chicago. That'll be tomorrow and Friday. And then he'll be transported into South Carolina, where on Monday he will lie in state in the state capitol in his home state of South Carolina. We're still awaiting to find out about the details regarding Washington, D.C. But then, of course, next week, he'll be lying in state Thursday in Chicago. And then on Friday, there'll be the public celebration of his life taking place at the House of Hope in Chicago on Friday. And then on Saturday, a private funeral at Rainbow Push. A couple of folks who never knew Reverend Jackson quite well. Reverend Horace Sheffield III, CEO of the Detroit Association of Black Organizations. He joins us right now. Also, Barbara Reynolds. She authored 2 books about Reverend Jackson. Jesse Jackson, the Man, the Movement, and the Myth. And Jesse Jackson, America's David. Glad to have both of you here. I'm going to start with you, Reverend Sheffield. You knew him well. Your father knew him well. He was a significant presence there in Detroit. Just share your thoughts and reflections about his life and legacy.
Sure. And by the way, I'm joined by Russell Tompkins, the voice of the Stylistics. He's doing a concert in the very place that you came and packed the house. Knew Jesse. By the way, I'm glad to be on with Sister. I read her book. My dad and Jesse knew each other from the days that he first came into the movement. I think I met him when I was around 10 years of age. It's no secret that many of the older heads clashed with him. And as I've said on several other interviews, my dad and I had robust conversations because I related to Jesse. I knew Dr. King. I knew all of those people personally. But his afro and his demeanor, his way of presenting things was very appealing to me. I did embrace nonviolence, but I also felt that Jesse had a way of communicating with folks that, maybe Dr. King and other folks couldn't.
Listen, he was there were battles there in Detroit, picket lines. He was there, and he also was extremely close with Detroit Mayor Coleman Young.
Yeah, well, the UAW was, very invested in the SCLC and the movement. And if you don't mind, by the way, Russell wanted to say a word about Jesse as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with him in Chicago because I worked there a lot in the 1970s. And on Saturday night, I would work in the clubs in Chicago, and then on Sunday morning, I would go to church with the Reverend. And he knew how to ask for some money, I can tell you that.
well, as we always say, freedom ain't free.
You're right. No, it's not free at all. And Roland, I hate to do this, but I got to introduce him for the show. I thought it was going to be on 7:30.
It's all good.
But let me just say this one thing, and I think that even Barbara, Miss Reynolds, whose book, I know didn't sit well initially, but look, Jesse, for whatever he was worth, love him or don't like him, was an iconic figure who is a little salt or a little yeast to leaven up the whole loaf. I mean, there's unquestionably, just think about proportional delegation in running for president of the United States in the Democratic Party. I mean, that is the reason Obama is president. And so we've got to give our kudos to him. There may be some issues that people have with him, but my dad always said, do you judge a person's life by one event or that one event by his whole life? And I do the latter, not the former.
All right, gentlemen, I certainly appreciate y'all joining us. Thank you so very much. Barbara, I want to go to you. Reverend Sheffield brought it up. Listen, you wrote a couple of books on Reverend Jackson. When you wrote one of those books, a lot of folks were not happy. But again, you are a journalist. You had to write a book based upon the facts, what you saw, what your reporting showed. And the reality is no one is perfect. No one is infallible. So just to take us through, again, your reporting and what you saw, what you understood, and what you experienced when we're talking about this international iconic figure.
Well, let me start where I started. In the 70s, I arrived in Chicago at the same time that he was arriving and starting Operation Push. In fact, I was his neighbor. I was 5 blocks away, and I used to to go to his house and interview him and talk with Jackie and pick up Jesse Jr. And I was in a peculiar situation because I was one of the first Black reporters for the Chicago Tribune. And they told me from the very get-go that I was a token. And they told me that they had never seen a Black woman could write and report. Now here's Jesse Jackson, who's telling us, you are somebody. You may be poor, you may be locked up, but you're somebody. So I'm here looking at, this is what the white people are saying, I'm not nothing, but this is what this Black man is saying, that we're all somebody. So I became very close to him. In fact, his wife took me the first trip to Africa, and I began to be with him as he made major decisions. And it was quite iconic because when I arrived in Chicago, I was told that he was the new king. And so not saying, well, I don't know, I covered him as the new king. When you go to Breadbasket, they would make all kinds of statements about, here's the man who is the new king, Operation Push, the new king. And the reason I covered Push was because on Saturdays, nobody really wanted to work on Saturdays, but I did. And I began to see something extraordinary. First of all, we have to put our minds on what did he do in Chicago, because King left the Northern movement in his hands. And at that time, Mayor Daley had an extremely effective patronage system that locked Black people out. And Blacks were not getting good jobs. They were putting inferior meat in the stores. And Reverend Jackson used this economic sense of a breadbasket that starts saying, okay, you won't trade with us, we won't spend with you. But if your businesses employ Blacks, well, I tell you what, we'll be praising him at Operation Push. And I saw that, how he pushed people forward in jobs, business products came in. And that was a very successful time because, you see, he was like made for the movement. I mean, in 1969, people were still suffering from the death, the assassination of Dr. King. And what the white establishment wanted was someone who could talk rough, look rough, but not want to burn down any more buildings. So Reverend Jackson was that kind of charismatic figure. He could talk.
But Barbara, also explain to people, again, I don't think people really understood those Saturday meetings. I mean, obviously, when you got to the 2000s, again, numbers were going down. But when you talk about the 70s and 80s, that facility, standing room only, jam-packed. If you were a black figure across the country, entertainer, actor, politician, when you came to Chicago, you had better have a Saturday stayover on your agenda, because that was the place. That was the hottest ticket in town every Saturday morning at the workshop.
It was church, you know. It opened with the choir. Jackie was the singer. It was church, but it was the economic and politics coming together. And there sometimes was so monumental. In fact, I was the first reporter on the scene when Black Panther, Fred Hampton, and Mark Clark were killed. And the word was Bobby Rush would be next. So Bobby Rush turned himself into Jesse Jackson at Operation Push so that he could be put in jail without being killed. I mean, Push became a haven. It became our place, the place to be. And that was exciting. It was successful. And what happened was many of the media people, I was covering Push, and they would say, okay, cover Push. Nobody else wants to cover Push or be out on Saturdays. But once he started making headlines, I mean, foreign leaders came to push. I mean, if you're running for anything, you came to push. He had a mantle that would cover you, that would promote you. And I saw that rise from the very beginning. And it was startling, because sometimes I was there when he would make a decision, like this black pilot, Robert Goodman, was in Syria. And it seemed like the State Department didn't care about him, wasn't trying to get him out. And so sometimes I overheard discussions, because I was sort of always hanging around. And one day he said, we ought to go get him. And it was silence, among the people in the room. Go get him. How you going to go get him? And he said, yeah, we got to go get him because the State Department doesn't care. Well, the State Department did not want Jesse Jackson to go. But see, Jackson, and I may talk a little bit about his childhood, he had a magnificent way of self-definition. He defined himself. And that, I mean, how else could you say a man who would say, I'm going to run for president and I'm going to get millions of votes and did it. And did it effectively. Yeah, so, but these are things that I learned from him even now. That's why I'm sad as I prepare to go to Chicago, because he's gone. Look what he left with us. At a time, and this is very important, when Black people are called garbage. When the president of the States said we come from S-holes, and when from the White House you have pictures of Obama's as apes. At a time like this, we need to be speaking to the next generation that we're somebody, that we have to vote. It's our lifeline. It's in our lifeblood. So we have to have passionate leaders, not just people on talk shows, head shows, but people like Reverend Jackson can get to the heart of it. And some of that is being done by Al Sharpton, who is now taking on that economic package and trying to say, we have a 1.5 or $6 billion that we have for spending power. We have to use that for our own success. And that's where Al Sharpton is taking the movement. And see, it's a continuous line. It's King talks the ball to Jackson. Jackson is moving and moving. And see, when he ran, this is, I'm gonna make a point. When Jackson ran, he said, I'm not running for president by myself. I'm running so some of you will run for sheriffs. Some of you will run for state delegations. Yep. Some will run for the White House. I'm running because I want to create a system that will go on and know we have a place in politics. And that is still here. The rainbow politician, the rainbow coalition was effectively Jesse Jackson, knowing that we couldn't make change just having the Black vote, that you had to have the farmers, you had to have the environmentalists, you had to have the feminists. And that is why, when you look and say, that's why Obama could step in there, because the ground was laid by Reverend Jesse Jackson. We still need that coalition if we're going to move. And I think, yes.
Barbara, as a reporter, you saw him in many different ways. You saw him in front of the public. You saw him in private. The thing that you hear the phrase, listen, Reverend Jackson was like anybody, was a complex figure. He was somebody who understood the power of the media. He understood how to control the media. Some say manipulate the media. But what he also understood was he could not achieve what he wanted to achieve if he didn't know how to bring the cameras there. So his command of the media was absolutely impressive.
It was, and you got your finger on it, because he loved the media, and the media loved him. I mean, he was a handsome man. His speeches were like, that's why I call America's David was as poetic as King David was. And he courted the media. I mean, he would make calls at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to somebody in the media. Are you going to cover this? Are you going to cover that? And even when he had sickle cell, I remember going to his room and to his bedroom, because at that time we could still get in the bed. That even a sickle cell that he had was the time for a press conference. And I was with him in the early 70s when he went back home to Greenfield, South Carolina. And that was the first time I saw him cry publicly, because as a child, his father was not married to his mother. His father had a family next door, but Jesse was the child that was not there at that house. He was at his mother's house. And they called him a little bastard. Some evil people, that's what they called him. But Jesse had this thing about it. But Noah Roberts, his father, claimed, he said, okay, I wasn't married, but that's still my son. But Jesse Jackson, I have to say, it had to be the Spirit of the Lord with him. Because I interviewed his teachers, and they say he would put on a suit and something and come to school, that he wanted to look important, and that if anything was going to be changed, or if a position like the student council, he wanted to be president of the school student council, so he wanted to run. And that is only, I can say, God must have done it. Because in South Carolina, I mean, you still had to walk off the street when it's dark. You couldn't be seen walking around. You could not go in stores where white people, or you were told that you were nothing. But this boy, young, kept trying to say, I'm somebody. And so I went home with him to Greensville, South Carolina. And neon signs all around the stores. Welcome home, Jesse. Mayors came out. We had an entourage that came with him. And he was crying. And I could have swore he turned to me. He said, yeah, I told him I'd be the best bastard they've ever seen. And I said, well, I guess so. So I saw, his good points. And I saw his flaws, but I was more of a beginning biographer than I've written Coretta Scott King's biography, my pastor's biography. And, I have to understand that we change. We fall out, we get up. And one thing I like to say is that how he dealt with the birth of Ashley Jackson, where about 20 years ago, he had to admit that there was a baby and that he was the father. And this is from a woman that was in Push that he worked with. And he did it. He said, I did it. I should have done it. I'm sorry, but I love the child. And that made me think more of him, because truthfully, in situations, there's abortions. There's say, I didn't do it. But he said, I did it, I was wrong. And like his father before him that did not disown him, he did not disown the child. And the Jackson family was brought enough and loving enough to embrace her. In fact, as I understand it, she's working on a documentary about him. So even some of his worst things, he turned on to be a good things, because he was a good man. He was a man of God, and he performed as a man of God. He made mistakes, but if anybody ever did my biography, I would hope they forget all the stuff I did wrong and say, well, he tried anyhow. So, I mean, I love him. And we didn't always disagree, because I'm telling you, you're a journalist, when you're covering anybody, sometimes you won't agree. You won't agree, you can disagree. But that doesn't spoil the whole thing. It's something you can disagree about, you can talk about it, write about it, and you don't forget the big picture. This man is a legend. This is why I'm awfully upset at Speaker Michael Johnson, who is saying that we can't lie in state. because he's not a former congressperson. He said Billy Graham not in the state. And I believe Rosa Parks did too.
Yeah, Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was the first non-citizen. Billy Graham, and then there were the 2 U.S. Capitol police officers, and it was called lying in honor. And then, of course, in Statuary Hall, Congresswoman Elijah Cummings was also lying there. I got my panelists with a couple of questions. Let me go to them. Joy, your question for journalist Barbara Reynolds, and then Brian. Joy, go.
Yeah, I would love to know, like, what's your favorite example? What's your favorite story from Jesse Jackson? Something that, you know, perhaps would be instructive to those of us who are generations coming up.
I really think that story of his childhood was probably a favorite story, because I could see how it felt to be told that, you know, your mother didn't marry your father, and to come with a stigma. I think that was probably my favorite story, of going home with him to see at 27, I think, he was in the Gallup polls, said he was as well known and liked as Pope Paul and Ronald Reagan. Just to see, I mean, you know, you can say if a child like this child, who has been called a little bastard, and growing up in the South, he couldn't even go into the library. If he can become somebody, why can't we become somebody? And, you know, I guess as I was with him, and I was so degraded in journalism, in my profession, that it took much for me to be next to him, always saying, Jesse did it. Jesse did it. I can do it. I can do it. I'm somebody too. And those kind of things will still be in my heart. That when I wanted to leave journalism, sometimes I thought, well, I got this. I can do this. I think those kinds of stories that defeat. He did not win the presidency, but he laid the groundwork for others to run, and it was never about him. And he said that he was unselfish in putting his body on the line. So I suppose that those are the things that I think most about him.
Brian.
I'm wondering, who do you think Jesse Jackson would want to see be the next president of the United States, or at least run in 2028? And my second part of that question is, what was the type of feeling that Jesse Jackson had, and what did he say about minorities in this country that continue to support Donald Trump and his agenda? Like, what was his message to them, and who does he think are some of the rising stars in the Democrat Party? I guess a two-point question for you there.
Well, he didn't think much about those who were not with him, because he spent so much time working for the next group. And it's hard to pick. You know, some would say King, Jeffries. There's, you know, others would say maybe even Letitia Jones. I mean, she shows such great wit and strength. But I couldn't guess which one he would say. He probably would have been right there supporting Kamala Harris, right there supporting her. But he was sort of outside the Democratic Party. He was more than the Democratic Party, because his agenda that was more progressive, that some are still trying to deal with it. So I couldn't say exactly who he would run for. I have a senior moment now, because I'm seeing my hero in Texas who might run. Can you please help me out there, Mark Llewellyn?
You said who's running in Texas?
No, yeah, she's running.
You mean Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett?
Yes, well, how could I forget her? I mean, she is sort of like him in a way. She's tough. She's smart. I was at Martha's Vineyard a couple months ago, and people were lined up around the block to see Jasmine Crockett. So I would think that he might support her. I can't say, but that's what I think. She's the kind of leader. But see, then again, when you look at Kamala, you have to say, I don't think she lost in the first place. I think that Musk controlling so much of the technology did something to the votes. And I think that we have better look at the technology, because this man is going to do everything he can to win. Any votes can be stolen. Anybody can be jailed. Look what he's doing now with all these troops and ICE people there. That's a setup for imprisonment. When you look around the country, they're building thousands of prisons. In fact, more money is now being spent on these prisons he's building than education. This new act, I think, Save America Act, that what we were all watching the State of the Union, the Senate passed this bill. That means to get to vote, you might have to bring your passport or your marriage license. This is us trying a stranglehold of bringing us back to where Reverend Jackson brought us out of.
Well, you made the point about, again, it was July 16, 2023. We were there in Chicago when the campaign was going on, and Vice President Kamala Harris was there to speak. When, of course, Freddie Haynes was also being installed, and so he was very much a part of these campaigns and was always quite visible. There are going to be a lot of folks traveling to Chicago. Let me go ahead and share the data again, folks. This celebration of life of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He'll be lying in repose at Rainbow Push headquarters, 930 East 50th Street in Chicago, Thursday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday, February 27th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. More details, go to jessejacksonlegacy.com. And then they have on, so when you look at the schedule, give me 1 second. First of all, they have the Rainbow Push alumni going to have their own gathering at 7 p.m. on Thursday, March 5th at the Rainbow Push Community Room. That's taking place there. Reverend Jackson was also a member of Omega Psi Phi, and they're having their Omega service for him, and that's taking place on Thursday, March 5th as well. You see the QR code there. Scan to register, and it says that all Omegas that want to attend, they must attend a mandatory planning session via Zoom on Monday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern. So lots and lots of things are going to be happening. Everything begins tomorrow, and so it's going to be about a 9-day celebration beginning tomorrow in Chicago and then going to St. Louis, coming back to Washington, D.C., and then culminating in Chicago. We will be there on the ground in Chicago next week covering all of it. Barbara Reynolds, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Can I say one thing? If you want to contact me, contact me at Reynew, REYNEW77 @gmail.com.
All
and
right.
Thank you so much, Roland. I do appreciate this conversation with you.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Thanks a lot. Folks, that is it for us. Let me thank Rebecca had to leave early. Let me thank Joy. Let me thank Brian. Brian's first time here on the show. I did his show. So first time having you, Brian. Looking forward to having you back. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Roland. I really appreciate you and all the times you've done my show. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys and happy to do it again anytime. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, that's it for us. Tomorrow, I will be broadcasting from Los Angeles, heading there for the NAACP Image Awards. So I'll be attending the various events there. So look forward to that. Don't forget, support the work that we do by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Again, our support, we've had 37,179 donors. And so we're approaching 40,000. Let's make that happen. Get your name on the list. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. You can also use that for credit cards as well. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, RolandSMartin.com, RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, of course, be sure to go to shopblackstarnetwork.com for our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag. Get our T-shirts, get our mugs, wall art, all that good stuff. Also, support the Black-owned companies that support this network. If you go to our marketplace at shopblackstarnetwork.com, all the items you see right here on this table in our control room, all those items, all those are Black-owned companies. And so whether it's tissue, toilet paper, we've got backpacks, crossword puzzles, all sorts of stuff. Go to, again, shopblackstarnetwork.com. Also, don't forget to download the app fan base as well. All right, folks, I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!